Well, before we start the show today, we just wanted to acknowledge 9/11 and say that we remember. This is an instrumental called Heroes March On. We'll start the show in exactly 1 minute. You are listening to the Horse Radio Network, part of the Equine Network family.
What a beautiful day for horses in the morning.
You are listening to the #1 horse podcast in the world. Here is your entertaining look at the horse world and the people in it.
Well, good Wednesday morning, everybody. I am Glenn the Geek in Ocala, Florida.
And I'm Jamie Jennings in Norman, Oklahoma. You're listening to Horses in the Morning on the Horse Radio Network for Wednesday, September 11th, episode 3517. Good morning, Horse World. Happy Poop Week. It's brought to you by Poseidon Animal Health.
You've heard of Shark Week. Well, now there's something even more sinister. Welcome to Horses in the Morning Poop Week. Yeah, an entire week talking about your horse's poop. Buckle up for a slippery ride.
You don't pay that guy enough.
Hi, this is Katie from Vermont, and I'm calling with my poop story. So my niece was at a barrel race, waiting to go in, and my sister and I are standing next to her, and we're all watching the rider in the arena and not paying attention to her horse, when we suddenly hear someone saying, "Oh, gross, it's all over me." And we look behind us, and her horse is squirting poop out, and it's splattering the guy in the lawn chair that we accidentally parked next to.
Okay, it's not funny, but it's funny. Happy show, everybody.
Yay!
Earlier in the year, we had Travel Week, and now the week is dedicated to something we all deal with a lot. We shovel it, we study it, we test it, we move it, we spread it, we compost it, we throw at each other as teenagers. Yup, it's horse poop. All this week, we'll be discussing poop, how to make it healthier, how to move it, how to compost it, all the poop things. And on today's show, brought to you by Poseidon Animal Health, we continue to look at proper composting techniques with our favorite homesteader, Angela. She's going to join us and talk to us about how to wet compost. And Dr. Speziok from Spring Hill Equine gives us the latest on deworming. We've covered deworming on the show a lot over the last 14 years, and it's changed a lot over the last 14 years.
It has.
So what should we be doing today? What's the latest? And do we have any weird news at the end of the show?
We have a few stories, yes. So
okay.
I tried to find poop stories, but most of the weird news poop stories are not things I would really care to share. So I tried to focus on mostly animal related ones.
Okay. All right. Well, that's coming up at the end of the show today. Also, after that, I will let you know why the cows outside my window have bells on. We brought this up a couple of weeks ago.
You figured it out?
We asked the farmer. We finally caught the farmer as he was out visiting the cows, and he told us exactly why they have bells on, and it made sense. Plus, at the end of the show, what's the verdict on boats versus horses? Our listeners with horses and boats chime in and give us their opinion. So we'll find out that toward the end of the show, too. I just wanted to mention that we are having some internet issues today. So if you hear garbling every once in a while, it's not bad. But if you do hear it, that's what's going on. There was nothing much we could do about it. But now I think we have a record for the number of birthdays in one day.
Oh, he's going to mispronounce every one of them.
No, I'm not, because I'm only doing the first names because there's so many. So happy birthday to Tiana, Corinna, Tessa, Michelle, Britt, Carolyn, Rachel, Bree, Elise, Stacy, Jerry, Rhonda, Lauren, Jennifer, and April. We have never had this many in one day before. Happy birthday to you all. Born on 9/11. There's a lot of birthdays today. So we hope you have a fantastic day.
Remember, by the way, if he mispronounces even your first name, it's a badge of honor because that's what he does. So my daily Whinnie, I've got a couple. One goes to my dear friend TJ at the Maytag Mountain Ranch. He came over yesterday, drove in from Colorado, and picked up his new member, the horse that I found for the ranch, Panzer. I let our little German exchange student Anna name him. It's German for tank. And that is what I just found him. So Panzer is now on his way to the Maytag Mountain Ranch to live possibly the best life a young middle-aged quarter horse could possibly live. Is you just let children hop on you and take them on trail rides and like walk up and walk back down. So he's on his way to his new. So I'm really excited. I mean, it's so cool to find a horse because TJ is just an ultimate horseman, and to be able to provide a 3,000 acre easygoing lifestyle for a horse like this is just an absolute gift and a blessing. And I'm so happy to be able to do it. I got him here and I'm like, listen, you're going to have to suffer through some stuff like vaccines, teeth floating, sheath cleaning, and hock injections, but you're going to head out there and be a freshly greased wheel, and you're going to go live the life that you were meant to live. So I'm really excited. Remember, these horses that go to Maytag, they live on 3,000 acres, and they, for about 6 months a year, come up and stand the corral and take people on rides and then get turned back out, like on 3,000 acres. So it's a really nice existence. The second daily Whinnie is for Electra, Janet, and Angie. They are my 3 girls that are here for the riding clinic. And Electra is a professional chef. And so she employs Janet, Angie, and I to be her sous chefs. And Electra started cooking at 1:00 in the afternoon, and we ate at 8. And I'm not kidding you. I've never had. And so she makes like a meat meal, and then she makes a vegetarian meal all on the same meal. Like, it's ridiculous. And last night, Chad and TJ were sitting there and they're like, we're so sad you can't have some of this chicken. And I was like, I can have some of the chicken. I just don't want any of the chicken.
Chad isn't giving up, is he?
No, but TJ is like, he's a rancher, right? He's like, I don't understand. He's like, just put it in your mouth and chew it up and then spit it out. And I was like, I don't want to. He goes, you just have to taste it. You don't have to swallow it, but I can't believe you're not tasting this food. Like, they just don't get it. Especially a rancher just doesn't get why I don't eat meat. No, I can. I just choose not to. So I've never been told to just chew it up and then spit it out so I can have the pleasure of the taste of the chicken that Electra made. But whatever, it's fine. I didn't do it. I'm good to go. The carrots were amazing.
It's funny because they probably have their ranch out there caters to some very, very wealthy people. And I am sure they have a lot of vegetarians amongst those wealthy people out there. And he probably doesn't understand them either. So,
no. I don't know of any that are. It's pretty much, I mean, they raise their own. So that's part of the allure of it is they raise their own beef on the ranch. They raise their own chickens, they raise everything. And they've actually, their whole ranch is designed. Who is the the Temple Grandin actually designed their cattle
Oh, really?
areas. Yes. So, I mean, these are like raised and killed the right way and all the things that I don't really like. But if you're going to do it, they do it right. So like I said, he's like, have you ever heard of Temple Grandin? And I was like, yeah, she did all this. Yeah, I have heard of her. She did all this. So they had their whole cattle thing was designed by Temple Grandin, and it's just amazing. So yeah, they don't understand why I won't eat it. Just leave me alone. Anyway, it was amazing. Thank you, Electra, for providing meatless options.
Well, to get to poop this morning, we did a poop poll of the auditors. I wanted to know
a poop poll.
I wanted to know what they did with their poop, and we came up with 4 options: compost it, dumpster, and have it hauled away, spread it on the fields immediately, or the other option was neighbors fight over it for their gardens. So what the results were interesting. Compost it was 44%. Dumpster was 15%, and that's usually when you're in an area that's congested and you can't spread it anywhere. Spread it on fields immediately was 36%. I thought that would be like 70%. I was surprised at the amount of people that compost it. 44% compost it, which was surprising to me. What do you do? So we have a little bit of a system. So I compost on the back part of the property. So everything that comes out of my stalls goes and is composted. I can't spread it on the fields immediately because I use shavings. Not a ton, but I use shavings. And if you put shavings down that hasn't been composted, it leaches the nitrogen out of the grass and then you kill your grass. So we compost it, but I have 2 piles. And again, it's not fancy. It's just in the back of my property. I just dump it on a pile. And then Chad will turn it with his tractor. Every once in a while, he'll go out there and just take the tractor and move it around and put it in another pile. And while that's cooking, I start another pile. So I always have one pile that's about ready to be spread. And then every spring we spread it on the fields. We bought a manure spreader and go for it. I got a manure spreader off Craigslist, Glenn. I mean, what are you going to do? Perfect. Sounds perfect to me. That's what we did.
I think he just loves that whole thing. Like the fact that I clean the stalls and we're able to use it as fertilizer. So that's less fertilizer that we have to actually buy. The manure spreader cost the price of like 2 sets of sprayings. So I think in the end, it's paid for itself already. So I do love having that option. And he gets to drive his tractor and scoop up poop and dump in his spreader and then go spread it around. And I feel like he feels like a super farmer when he does it. And
makes him happy.
Yeah.
We did finally find a spreader, a little tiny spreader off of Craigslist, I think. And they are just so expensive. It's just incredible how expensive spreaders are. So I have a random poop fact before we get to our first guest. Did you know that in 1783, 2 French inventors successfully launched the first hot air balloon? It was made from cloth and paper and was fueled by a combination of wool, straw, and horse manure. The combination of these materials produced a large amount of smoke and hot air, which was believed to be essential for lifting the balloon. At the time, they thought that the smoke itself had the lifting properties rather than the hot air. They thought it was the smoke doing the lifting back in 1783. The flight lasted for about 10 minutes, and the balloon reached to an altitude of roughly 4,900 feet before it descended and landed about 2 kilometers away.
When they say descended, does that mean it came tumbling to the ground?
Well, I think it probably came down a little slower because there was things on board. And apparently everything on board survived. There was a sheep, a duck, and a rooster. First of all, how'd the duck and the rooster stay in there? They must have had it crated in there because there's no way they would have stayed in there. So yeah, a sheep, a duck, and a rooster, and they all lived.
Oh, those poor animals. Like, hey guys, we're going to go ahead and put you in this basket. We'll see you in a little bit. Bye. And the sheep, a duck, and a rooster, they lift up in the air. They must have looked at each other like, what the hell?
But, horse manure, if it's dry, it burns really well. So it probably creates a lot of smoke. So there you go.
That's what you told us all to start piling manure around our house so we can burn in the winter.
I agree. I think you should. We don't have that problem in Florida, so I'll let you do that, okay?
Okay.
Well, Dr. Erin was here on Monday, and she is with Poseidon Animal Health, and she did what we're calling poop nugget of the day for you. You like that?
It was so weird.
And this is revenge for all those gross things you've done to me for the last 14 years. And then we're going to get back with Angela, who's our homesteader, and we're going to be talking about composting.
Let's talk about free fecal water syndrome, a common issue where your horse's manure looks normal, but is accompanied by excess fluid. This syndrome is often a sign that the gut's tight junctions aren't working properly. This is where Poseidon Animal Health products could help. Backed by the latest advancements in scientific research, Digestive HP and Stress Paste are the perfect combination to provide a complete, fast-acting solution for free fecal water syndrome. Digestive HP is an everyday, complete gut health supplement, packed with pre- and postbiotics, 5 essential amino acids, and much, much more. Stress Paste is our concentrated gut boost to administer in times of stress or when starting Digestive HP. Combined, they are a powerhouse of gut protection and support that means no more dirty tails, butts, or painted stall walls. Visit PoseidonAnimalHealth.com to discover how Digestive HP and Stress Paste can make a difference in your horse today.
Well, she's been coming on our shows for years. She's out of New Jersey, and she's a homesteader. Her name is Angela Ferraro-Fanning. She's the author of The Sustainable Homestead. She knows everything there is to know about homesteading, and she does know about horse poop because she has some very big horses who poop a lot. Remind everybody how many horses you have and what they are.
I've got 4 drafts now.
Yeah,
I've got a
go.
Belgian, a Percheron, and I have 2 Clydesdales. So I've got the big guys.
That's a lot of poop right there.
It is. It is. We have to work hard to manage it, but we do it. We get it done.
I always, when you clean the poop, especially in the fields, I determine how big the horse is by how many scoops it takes, right, to get the poop. To get one pile of poop, like my pony's 1 scoop easy. Jennifer's horse, though, is a scoop. He's a big thoroughbred. He's like a scoop and a part. Yours are probably 2 scoops for sure.
Well, I got to be honest. I don't scoop it because I have a flock that I use in my pasture rotation management system, and they break it all apart, and it degrades and feeds the soil. So I don't pick up my pastures at all. And
You have a what that you use?
so I do rotational grazing with the horses, and then I let the sheep go through. But then I let my flock of ducks, geese, and guinea fowl go through. We've talked about the guineas before.
Yeah.
I know the guineas are loud, but they are amazing because it's gross. Okay, but it's nature. They scratch in the manure piles and they blow it apart. They're looking for the flies, the insects. They ingest larvae. And then when you have that poo that's all broken up into teeny tiny little pieces, you get a good rain through, it washes it, soaks it into the soil. You've got fertilizer. You added organic matter. And I don't have to haul it.
You need a bigger flock of birds there, Jamie. That's what I'm hearing.
Oh, man, I really want me some more guinea fowl. They're so fun.
We saw some at a farm down the street from ours the other day, and I went, oh, I thought of Angela. We had a little discussion. So
we don't need to get into that again, but you know how I feel about that.
Angela, we have you on to we have you on to talk about composting, but I wanted to say, when it comes to fields, the farm rental we have now, which is down the street from our new farm, which we hopefully are going to get in next week, we talked about this in the show yesterday, dung beetles, and we've always had the big dung beetles before that are, look like beetle-sized beetles.
Yeah.
Here we have the teeny weeny little ones that are about the quarter size of a fingernail, and there are like 100 of them in every poop pile. In a half a day, this poop is just completely disintegrated and take it. These are the most efficient dung beetles I've ever seen.
That's crazy. Well, you must not use, your deworming protocol must be good and in balance then.
Oh, well, I don't know about that, but I can tell you the dung beetles are happy. So
you're doing a good job. You're doing a good job.
I know. I just take it and spread it around. I don't have to pick it up. I'm just like you now. So without the chickens.
There you go.
Without the chickens.
Yeah.
So you did, one time before we talked about this, can you explain the different types of composting there is?
Sure. So usually when it comes to animal manure, we're talking about heaping it up outside somewhere, right?
Right.
And so we're not going to put it in a container necessarily that we close the lid. That's typically used for something like kitchen scraps. And hopefully you're not bringing in manure from the outdoors and putting it in a bucket for compost on your kitchen counter. Hopefully we're talking all the same thing about a massive heap somewhere. And when you pile it up, there's two types of compost. There's hot composting, and then there's cold or just letting it sit. Here's what the difference is. With cold composting, piling it up, letting it naturally do its thing, it's going to break down, but it's never going to get hot enough to kill weed seeds, different pathogens, or even some parasitic larvae. So while we definitely see a decrease in the amount of manure that's in that pile, it's not technically, quote unquote, usable in a garden space because all of the weeds and grass seed that the horse has ingested hasn't broken down. So it's just going to end up coming back and growing. So this is where we say, okay, if we want to use compost, for the quote unquote garden gold that it is, we need to actually get it hot enough that it's going to kill weed seeds, grass seeds, and then also as a benefit, it's going to kill, parasitic larvae and that sort of thing. So the hot compost, we tarp it. And that's what we do here at our homestead is I make a good old heap, big pile. When it gets big enough that it starts to get a little freaky to drive my four-wheeler over it and dump any more on top of it, that's when I tarp it. And I mean just a regular tarp. You buy at the hardware store. I anchor it down with bricks and I just let it sit there and do its thing. Now, I know that there's a lot of passionate composters out there who talk about watering their compost, turning it, aerating it. I'll be honest with you, I have had just as much success just tarping it and leaving it alone. And it takes a lot less time to break down because it gets so hot while it's killing all of those things that your compost is going to be ready in just a few months, as opposed to like 9 months plus, as it would be with cold compost method. We can't really end up using it anyway.
So a question about that, because, we've all been around a pile of compost that is not tarped and you kick it around and it's burning on the inside of it. So is that something that is concerning when you are putting a piece of plastic over it? Like it's going to catch on fire?
There are people that say that their compost heaps catch on fire, especially if they live in a hot climate. Maybe then that would be a situation where somebody would need to worry about watering it, turning it. Here where I am in Zone 7, central New Jersey, I've never had a compost heap get hot enough that it spontaneously combusts into flames.
How about Florida?
No.
Yeah. I feel like we're bursting into flames sometimes.
But I think the other thing that comes into play is it needs to be well balanced in terms of ingredients, right? So a lot of us think, oh, we'll just take manure out of the field. For example, we talked about that just a few minutes ago, and I'll pile it up. When you do that and you don't introduce any other, we call them brown or carbon ingredients. These are things like straw, leaves, sticks, even cardboard, things that are very fibrous materials. When you don't have enough of that, your compost heap is just straight manure or even food scraps or a combination of the two. You have so much nitrogen going on, it's going to be out of balance. It's not going to decompose properly. The rule of thumb is you don't want half and half. You don't want half manure, food scraps, and then half, all of the dead fibrous materials I mentioned. What you actually need is only 1/3 manure or green ingredients, and the other 2/3 needs to be that fibrous carbon-based material. And that is what a good compost recipe consists of. Now, am I walking around my farm with measuring cups and scales and making sure I get that just right? No. But what I am doing is I am taking the stuff that I clear out of my stalls, which not only contains manure, but contains pine pellet bedding because it breaks down faster. That's what I choose to use. And I toss that in the heap. There's fallen scraps of hay and straw that I go in there. I know there's some horse farmers around me that are very meticulous about making sure they only get manure in their heaps. But that's never really going to truly break down as well or as efficiently as if you don't have a balanced system of carbon and nitrogen.
That's interesting.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I was going to ask you about having hay and straw in it and leaves and things like that. And I was thinking, is that a bad thing? It sounds like it's a good thing.
No, you need that. Definitely.
Okay.
It's a good thing. Yeah.
And you don't turn yours at all. Jamie just talked about how they do hers and her husband loves to get out there and, turn it. But you don't turn yours at all?
No. So when I first started composting, I had it nearer to my horse stable than what I do now. And so it was more accessible to me. And so I would go over there, I would stir it. I experimented with a thing you may have heard of where people take a massive pipe, like a huge PVC pipe, and then they drill holes in the side of it and you stick it in the middle of the heap. So that way air comes in through the pipe and then it goes out through the little holes that you've drilled in the sides and helps to circulate air into the center of the pile, which in theory is supposed to help it break down faster. I personally have noticed no difference from turning it to using a pipe as to when I just tarp it and let it go. I think the other thing is if you have a good earthworm population, they're disturbing the structure of that compost. So they're kind of, in a way, turning it for you.
I can't imagine the amount of dung. When I pick up a pile of poop out here with those little dung beetles, there's like 100 of them in there. I can't imagine how many would be in the compost pile right now. So yesterday I was on with Karen, who lives out, one of my co-hosts, and she lives out in Nevada, where it's high desert, right? And I asked her what she does, and she composts wet composts, or, hot compost, like you would call it. She called it wet composting. And what she does is she does like 4 piles she rotates, and she doesn't turn it, but she does wet it. And she puts everything in there. Her household, anything that can decompose, she puts in the pile with her horse manure. And she said she lets it go for 4 years before she uses it on the garden. And then she was complaining yesterday that she has more zucchini than God. So, because, everybody plants way too many zucchini plants. I mean, you only need one.
Right.
So, she said it works great, but she composted for 4 years. How long do you let it go for before you put it on a garden?
That's a long time. Yeah, so if she's wet composting, that'd be one thing. And if she's in Nevada, she's in the desert, so she probably is gonna have to add moisture. Here in New Jersey, I'm considered a wet climate, so I don't have to wet it. We get plenty of rain. Nature takes care of it for me. But I tarp it, and when you tarp it, you're trapping all of that heat. And I think I could be misremembering what I read, but I believe it's 180 degrees Fahrenheit is what you want that compost heap to get to for it to be ready. So essentially, it's not even about the duration of time. It's not even about saying, oh, well, it's ready in 3 months or it's ready in 4 years. It's about when your compost heap gets hot enough, and when you pick it up and you kind of sift it with your hands, are any of the ingredients recognizable? If it just looks like earth and organic matter, then you can, and the temperature is correct, then you can use it and it's considered ready. Whereas if you're picking it up and you still see hay bits, maybe bits of manure in there, it's definitely going to need more time.
Oh, that's a good measurement to use. And when you're putting it on the garden, let's say, how much of it do you use? Can you overdo it?
Well, yes and no. It kind of also depends on the ingredients are in there. So if you have not a good balance of your nitrogen to your carbon, right, your manure to your dead leaves and straw and sticks, then you're going to end up having a very nitrogen-heavy compost. And too much nitrogen is not a good thing. It can burn your plants. So that's sort of another reason why you want to make sure that you're at least close to balancing out your ratios with that 1/3, 2/3 rule. Now, compost isn't really a fertilizer. It has to break down and go into a liquid form in order for plants to drink up the nutrients that it contains. Plants don't eat solids. They drink liquid. So while compost absolutely has a lot of nutrients, it's not relevant to the plant until it sits there for a while, becomes water soluble, and the plant can actually soak it up. So rather than think about it as a fertilizer, which eventually it will be when it can liquefy, think about it as a soil conditioner. You're adding organic matter, but even more importantly, you're adding all of that beneficial bacteria and stuff we can't see, the mycorrhiza, all that. You're adding that to the soil, which is going to create healthier soil structure. So in the long run, yes, you get nutrients, but in the short term, you just get healthier soil and better organic matter. So when I top off my gardens in the fall, I add about 1 inch of compost just as a top dressing on top of the entire growing space. And then over the wintertime, it breaks down that way. In the spring, when it's time to put those seedlings in the ground, a lot of that compost nutrients is now in a liquid form that the plants can readily take up.
Genius.
I'm learning so much today. I didn't know any of that.
I mean, seriously, I do like the compost, but like I don't do it. I mean, I do my garden in the same place every year. Why haven't I thought of that? Just do it now. Let it soak all winter, and then it's already in there in the spring, as opposed to me just putting it in and then it up. I've been writing that down.
I didn't know any of that.
Plus, in the spring, we're so busy, right? Starting seeds, planting, all that stuff. The last thing you want to do is have to be like, oh, I can't plant yet. I got to put my compost in. I need to let that sit for a couple of weeks. No, just do it now and let it sit over the winter, and then cover it if you can. Cover it with straw, not hay. Hay is full of seed. Cover it with straw. Cover it with even dead fallen leaves from your trees in your yard. That's an excellent mulch. And protect that compost over the winter so we don't lose nutrients that it contains through the sun, because it can solarize. The sun can burn it off.
Is pine needles a good option?
I was going to ask that.
Yeah.
Oh,
good.
Finally, a use for those things. Perfect.
We both have a lot of pine trees.
There you go.
One other question, and I'll let you go. Are there any risks to using composted manure in edible plants?
That's a great question. So if you decide, let's say you have lettuce that you planted in the spring, and you want to go through and just do another side dressing of compost for whatever reason, maybe you have too much, I wouldn't eat the lettuce right away after you apply that compost. I'd give it some time to chill out. Obviously that contains bacteria, both good, but also bad for our gut. The other thing that I do is I don't ever take a carrot out of the ground and just chomp on it. Even though the skin is edible, I like to think, okay, I am putting composted manure on there. Granted that it's not really manure anymore, it's compost. I still scrub my carrots and peel them before I just bite into them and eat them, because they are coming out of the soil. Now, if it was a lettuce leaf and the compost hasn't really touched it or done anything, then sure, I'll rip off a lettuce leaf, I'll rip off a strawberry. But anything grown in the compost, better be safe than sorry. Give it a wash. It's just
so wash your carrots and your potatoes.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, listen, I love you. You're absolutely fascinating. I love the fact that you know all this stuff. And I'm assuming a lot of this can be found in the book, The Sustainable Homestead.
Yes, I do have a whole chapter, I believe, on composting.
All right. We'll put the link to that. It's still available, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I'll put
She's like, yeah, buy my book.
And do you have a website, Angela?
I do. My website is axeandroothomestead.com, AXEAND, roothomestead.com.
Thank you, Angela. This has been a joy, as always. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Looking forward to next time. Thank you for having me.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
I love her. She knows more than we will ever know about homesteading and
That is such a good idea. Gosh, I mean, a lot of listening to her makes me think I'm doing it wrong, but every once in a while, she throws me a bone.
It is true, but then again, that's why we're doing Poop Week, so we can learn how to do it right. And we're just starting with a brand new farm, so I'm soaking this all in. That's a bad pun too, actually.
I'm soaking all that poop in. This Horse Health Report is brought to you by Daily Dose Equine, non-GMO core nutrition for horses and ponies of all ages. I'm pleased to welcome to the show Dr. Speziok. She's a veterinarian at Spring Hill Equine, and you'll probably, she spends a lot of time with one name you'll recognize, Dr. Latcher. But Dr. Latcher, how dare her? She decided to take a vacation. I didn't know veterinarians took vacations, Dr. Speziok.
Well, Dr. Latcher did not take vacations for a very long time. It has taken us years to convince her to finally do it. So we're very happy for her that she's having some time away from the clinic.
I know, that's fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we're celebrating all things poop related here on Horses in the Morning this week. And, in the world of veterinary medicine, I know things are constantly changing and you guys always have to do some research, but I think that one thing that I seem to notice constantly changing is protocol for deworming. Do you do fecals? How often do you do fecals? With rotational dewormers? What type of dewormer works? What type doesn't? How many are in the pipeline? It's like a constant cycle of information that comes through about deworming. So let's just get into it. What's new?
Yeah, for sure. So you're totally right. There's a million things out there. We all learned one thing 10, 20 years ago, and it's hard to change our ways. Horse people, once we find something, we stick with it. But science is what we've got to learn, from, and that's shown us that most of the old ways are not the right way. So kind of our current recommendations, what it boils down to is deworm less. to be totally honest with you. So we want to really, really focus our deworming and kind of like target that, as well. We do want to be monitoring the poop, monitoring the fecal egg counts. And I think people, for whatever reason, are sometimes resistant to do that because they'd rather just pick up a dewormer from the feed store, but it saves money and time, to be able to monitor those things. So kind of the current recommendation is everybody does get dewormed at least once per year. We usually do a combination product. At our clinic, we like Equimax, which is a ivermectin praziquantel combo. And we do that once a year in the fall for everybody. Kind of two reasons for that. The praziquantel part of that gets tapeworms, and tapeworms aren't found on our fecal egg counts. So we kind of just have to catch those guys where we can. And then, but in the fall for the other guys, we're kind of catching the large strongyles, and we're at least touching the small strongyles, which are our main issue in our adult horses. And then everybody also gets a fecal done. We usually do that in spring, so about 6 months separate from that one deworming. And we classify them into a low shedder, a medium shedder, or a high shedder. And that's how we determine if they get extra deworming or not. And typically, it's just the high shedders that get extra dewormings.
Okay, so let's go back to the fall protocol. So you use the Equimax, which also, I think what we have here in Oklahoma, which I didn't have in Arizona, and it's a fun gift that we get here in Oklahoma, is botfly eggs. Oh my God. So kind of the thought here, when the last time I talked to my veterinarian about it, was the most recent thought was, after we get a freeze, to then deworm with something like the Equimax, because that has ivermectin in it too, right? Mm-hmm. Because the ivermectin is what kills the botfly eggs in your. Can you test for botflies in a fecal?
Not in a fecal. We typically find them if we scope the stomach, we see them. Obviously, we're not going to scope the stomach just for those, but we do sometimes see some fun ones. And then we'll see those botfly eggs on the actual horse's legs. The good news about botflies is they're basically just annoying. They don't cause major issues for the horse themselves. Even when we do see them, when we scope the stomach and we see huge clusters of botfly in the stomach, it takes way more than the majority of horses have to actually cause an issue. But yes, the ivermectin, so that class of dewormer, the macrocytic lactones, which is what ivermectin is part of, kills the botflies. And so typically just getting those guys once a year in the fall. We don't really know what freezes here are in Florida, but yes, I agree with your vet that if you are lucky enough to get freezes, then yes, that sounds like a great time of year to do it.
Okay, gotcha. And that just is shocking to me that if they don't cause a lot of damage, because it's like a fly. The way that a botfly creates its existence is just so fascinating. Since I'm on the topic of it, will you just run through the life cycle of a botfly for people that maybe don't experience the fun?
Yeah. So botflies are kind of these little parasites that they obviously do fly, and their life cycles kind of go through mammals. And so essentially they're going to deposit their eggs actually on an animal. So in horses, we will typically see these little yellow botfly eggs. They often like to live on the backs of horses' legs themselves. And so they actually sort of drop them on there, and then that basically makes they've got stuff on their legs. So they're going to kind of rub their face on their legs and, itch it, try to get those eggs off. And then they will subsequently ingest them. And then those are eventually going to get to the intestine if those botflies are very lucky. And they do actually basically attach them to the stomach lining. It's pretty crazy if you've ever seen it on a scope of a bunch of these little larvae kind of hanging out. And then they will remain attached. It's like 10 to 12 months before they're then passed in the feces, and then they mature and continue on with the life cycle. So very much the true parasite, right? Like fully feeding off of that horse and then moving on with their lives. But luckily, in general, we don't get a lot of health issues from them.
That's interesting. I didn't know. They scare me half to death because I'm like, I just think of the just the way that the world works and how things work. It's like that to me is okay. I'm going to lay my eggs on your hair. You're going to rub it off. And then I'm going to get in the corner of your mouth and travel down and wake up in your stuff. Like I find the whole thing fascinating and scary. And Glenn, I just wanted you to remind you of the fact that what she just said was that you're then going to, in 12 months, find it in your horse's poop. So just keep an eye out for that.
For sure.
So for fecal egg count testing, I was a vet tech at a clinic in Arizona, and they had us, they came in and taught us all to do the fecal egg flotations at the vet clinic. Mm-hmm. But there's also companies where you can send little, vial of your horse's poop and they'll test it there. What do you recommend for fecal egg testing?
So the biggest thing for fecal egg testing for horses and really all large animals is it has to be quantitative. So we have to get a number from it. So like in dogs and cats, we tend to just go with positive, negative. Do they have worms or do they not have worms? There's a lot of reasons for that. Probably the main one is they live inside with us and sleep on our beds. And so we'd like them to have 0 worms. And so but for large animals, we get that quantitative on grass. We know they're going to have parasites. It's just a matter of how many they have. So the kind of simplest way to do the fecal egg count quantitatively is called a McMaster's test. And what that is it's still done with a microscope the same way you would do a fecal float, but it uses a special slide that has like a grid mark on it. And it's all there's a lot of math involved. You have to use a certain number of grams of the poop and do calculations afterwards. But basically you get a number. There's also machines now that do that for us because we're in 2024. And so, certainly there's things that basically can do the quantitative analysis without a person being as involved. Our clinic has a machine called the Parasite, but it's spelled not like a parasite. I think it's CYTE is the last 4. And that's what does our fecals for us. And it actually uses artificial intelligence to tabulate the amounts of eggs. It's really cool.
Oh my gosh, that's so crazy. So now we're getting into like AI helping us count eggs in our horse's poop. What? That's crazy.
Welcome to the future.
We never dreamed, Glenn, that this would be our future. It's so exciting.
100%.
I love it. Okay. So they can send them to you. There's companies that do that. So just find somebody who has some science behind the fecal flotations and egg counts and all that. So before we run out of time, what are some common mistakes that you see horse owners make when it comes to deworming?
Yeah, totally. So the biggest thing is going to be deworming too often and rotating dewormers. So a lot of people learned and grew up, deworming every 2 months, every 3 months, every time the farrier came, whatever, time period they decided on, and they would switch the dewormer every single time. That is unfortunately what has landed us in this mess of resistance. And so that is the worst thing that we can do.
Well, that was what I grew up with, right? That's what we all did.
What they said.
Yep. That's what everybody did. And that's why we are where we are. So there's massive resistance to every single dewormer on the market. And it just depends on where you are, which resistance you have. And you just hope that you don't have all of the resistances. And the scary thing about that is that there are no new dewormer classes being developed. None. So we have what we have. And we have to save them and make them work. Otherwise, we are going to go back to, the days before dewormers where we're having animals dying of parasites, essentially. And so it seems counterintuitive, but the answer is truly to stop giving those dewormers so often. And the reason for that is that every single time we expose the parasites to those dewormers, at least some of them don't die, they stay alive, and they learn how to fight those dewormers. And then they breed and they propagate those genetics. And so we are just breeding into resistance. And if we show the parasites a different dewormer every 3 months, we have now bred in resistance to all of those dewormers. And that happens very quickly. Yeah.
God, antibiotics and dewormers both have the same problem.
Exactly.
Yeah. So Equimax is what you recommend in the fall, and then do a fecal float in the spring to see what you actually should give then?
Yeah, so that's kind of our baseline protocol, and that's for our area. That's what works best for our area and our clients. So if you're in a drastically different area, like talking with the vets in that area and finding out what's best for them. But the big thing is, if you don't know if that's the right protocol for you, is doing something called a fecal egg count reduction test. And so if you've got a group of horses, you want to do it on like at least 5 of them. If you just have one horse, you can do it on the one horse. But you're essentially doing a fecal egg count, then you're giving a dewormer, and you kind of so maybe you pick Equimax, so you just pick the one you think is the best chance of being effective. And then you do another fecal egg count 2 weeks later, and you calculate the percentage change. And so you're looking for a pretty big percentage change. You're probably not going to get as a 99%, which is what the gold standard is, because there is so much resistance out there. But if you're getting no change or a really, really low percentage change, then that's evidence of resistance to that dewormer. And so you've got to come up with a different plan, essentially.
It all comes back to science. We gotta
sure
science the heck out of this stuff. So, well, Dr. Speziok, thank you so much. You are a wealth of knowledge about something very useful. So thank you very much. I was thinking, like, my husband would think this is not very useful information. Do you have a husband involved in
horses dying filled with worms? That's what I'm going to have nightmares about.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
That's what I took out of this whole thing.
Sure. It's fantastic. I love it. You're a wealth of knowledge, and we appreciate you coming on, and hope Dr. Latcher has a wonderful time, and you are welcome back anytime, my friend.
Well, thank you so much. I would love to come back and chat again. This was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on.
SpringHillEquine.com. Oh, if you're into winning things, head on over to StatelineTack.com right now. They always are giving away prizes. You can subscribe right there. It's free and easy to do. And their September giveaway is horse clothing from Horseware. That's right. They're giving away a grand prize. It's a Rambo Supreme turnout sheet, and the runner-up receives an Amigo fleece cooler, halter, polos, ear net, all kinds of stuff. And then third place winner gets one of their Stable Plus rugs. So they have lots of terrific prizes from Horseware. This is expensive stuff. So head on over right now, register during the month of September to win one of the terrific September giveaways. And I will tell you that in August, they gave away the Ariat prize pack, and there was one happy winner of that as well. So they're always giving away stuff.
I don't see where
it wasn't.
I don't see where they announced the winner. What?
I was. I'm very sorry. It wasn't you.
You're the worst.
All right, let's get to some weird news right after the final poop fact of the day. So horse manure was used in construction and has been practiced in various cultures throughout history, particularly in ancient times and in rural settings. In ancient Egypt, mud bricks made with a combination of straw, mud, and animal dung were commonly used in the construction of homes and buildings. In Europe, during the medieval times, cob houses used clay, straw, and animal manure. The manure helped bind the materials and improved insulation. In Native American times and early colonial settlements, Native American groups and European settlers used a similar method, mixing manure with earth to create homes. Wattle and daub structures, for instance, used a mixture of mud and animal manure to fill the gaps between the wooden framework. So log houses, that's what they would use to fill the gaps. And then in Asia and Africa, various cultures in both continents used animal dung, including horse manure, for similar purposes in earthen constructions like adobe houses. So it's all, throughout the years, we've used animal dung for construction of homes. And one of the things that's not often talked about was its ability to help repel insects. Apparently, a lot of insects don't like horse manure. We know the ones who do, but apparently there were ones that don't. And it was actually used to help repel insects too. Maybe it's just because it filled the gaps. I don't know. But horse manure, I'm kind of glad we don't use it to build things anymore. But I guess we could.
At this point, we can burn it. We can build our houses with it.
Yeah.
We can make a tea out of it. I mean, my God.
Doesn't it make it
so much?
Seem like we're wasting it by just putting it in compost and spreading it?
You can come pick up all mine and do whatever you want with it.
Seems like a good time to start that.
Why some days you're embarrassed to be part of the human race. In Jamie's Weird News.
Yes, if you're ever looking through wherever you read news or headlines and you see something and you're like, that is so weird, email it to me, Jamie@horseradionetwork.com with weird news in the subject line. Just like Delia, Shelley, Glenn, Aaron, Jolyn, Laureen, and Janelle all did. And thank you guys for sharing some of your stories. Now, I've got animal stories today. However, I've got to just tell you about this weird story. Her name is Sandra Nicole Martinez. Her title incorporates Her Royal Highness, Her Imperial Highness. She has been in Italy at the most exclusive parties and social events because she was introduced to them by another Italian socialite. So she is like in on the scene with all these Italian socialite, upscale, fancy people. And so when people are like, who is this woman? She's like, I'm the Empress of the Imperial House of, wait, hold on. Let me get this. She's the Empress of the Imperial House of Glodeni, a royal house with headquarters in Beirut, Lebanon. Okay. Have you heard of that?
No, I've
before?
never heard of Glodeni.
The Imperial House of Glodeni.
Oh, sorry.
Obviously. Yeah, it's not real.
Oh, okay.
It's not real. She just gave herself this title. She's like, hi, I am the Empress of the Imperial House of Glodeni in Beirut, Lebanon. And if anybody would just Google that, that's not a thing.
I just did, and it shows up on Facebook a number of places.
It's an Eastern European county in Moldova. She basically like frauded her way into high society by just giving herself a title. Okay. So I was thinking we should all think of titles for ourselves at some point.
She
so
kind of looks like a Greek goddess with her complete outfit on.
Do you know how she got caught?
No.
She's been driving like luxury cars through Rome and the historical center, ignoring license plate cameras and like parking places because whatever, she can afford it. No, she can't afford it. She had been stealing tags off of other cars and then putting them on her car and then just driving around and getting tickets all over the world. No problem, because the tickets aren't going to her. It's not even the right thing. So what happened is, this is the weird part, is she had parked like next to a wall in Italy, and the wall, like something happened and the wall crushed her car and the police were called and they got her.
Oh, jeez.
Because of an accident where like a wall fell down on the hood of her car. Like there's all these walls in Rome, like everything, you park next to a wall, everything's a wall. So yeah, some of the walls broke and fell and squished her car. And then the police came to like make a report and they were like, oh, here you are. We've been looking for you. So she has been arrested for fraud. So way to go.
There apparently, I'm reading here, there's another one, and he called an Italian con man. This is an Italy thing. He called himself His Imperial and Royal Highness Stefan Cernak, Hereditary Prince of Montenegro, Serbia, and Albania. And he managed to befriend some members of the world's most famous royal families. His story is even more fascinating than that of the Empress of Glodeni. So those two want to get together in jail.
They probably should date. Like, totally.
Oh my God, that's funny.
I just thought it was so weird.
That's weird.
There's more than one. Okay, so there has been a massive problem down at the border of Texas and Mexico. And no, not what you think. There is a zoo, the Quinta La Fauna Zoo in the Mexican border city of Reynosa. And unfortunately, they had to send out tweets and X's and all the things to let everybody know a tiger escaped. What could possibly go wrong? Mexican zoos, I mean, there's pictures of it. It's like, it's a big old orange and black tiger like this sucker. And it got out. And they do not let you know how it got out, because I'm pretty sure they don't know how it got out. So there has been like, people have been like, oh, here, I'm going to read you part of the information on the tweet. Okay. This is from the Seguridad Pública Reynosa. Attention to the citizens living in the western area of the city. This is the cat that escaped from La Fana. Please, the cat, by the way, it's a tiger. Please take precautions. Do not try to catch it. Dial 911 or the number for your safety. Do not approach the animal. It may cause harm.
Did they say whether it was hungry when it escaped? Because
it may cause harm. It might not. I mean, it's just a tiger. Kitty. Now, that was sent to me on, I think, last Monday. But since then, now we do have an update. They did capture the tiger. It was spotted nearby the zoo on this past Saturday, and they set up traps in the area, and they caught it. The Post said the animal was unharmed, but they are not clear whether they're going to let the tiger go back to that zoo. Probably a good idea.
Did they say what the stomachs of it, or what the contents of his stomach included when he got back?
They have not killed
dogs and cats from the neighborhood.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, what a mess! But it's just like a loose tiger in your neighborhood. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's gonna be fine. And then, so it always makes me wonder why people have cameras. I don't know if anybody listening does have cameras in their house. You know, you see like the footage of somebody like slipping on a banana peel and like it's wacky and it goes viral. Well, I don't know why people have cameras in their house, like a camera in their kitchen, like recording motion. Well, there was like a Ring kind of camera set up in this cabin in California, and it's in like South Lake Tahoe, and there's a camera set up, and I guess the guy's Ring doorbell or whatever activated. There's motion in your kitchen. Something is in your kitchen. Someone is in there. So he flips on his camera, and you can see, this is all on film. Okay, you can see the YouTube video. Just Google YouTube bear captured on surveillance footage. Because he starts zooming the camera around and boop, up pops this bear. Just this giant brown bear just poop pops right up on the other side of the counter. Then the next thing you see is this giant brown bear tipping up giant jars of jelly. He went into their refrigerator, Glenn. It's all on surveillance footage. Went into the refrigerator, removed the jelly, and sat in the kitchen, and like he's drinking it like it's a stein of beer.
Once
from
they
Germany.
learn how to
He's
open
like,
the fridge, you're screwed.
Oh yeah, you are so screwed. Yeah, so it was wandering around eating all the jelly. It's seen opening the fridge, eats the jelly, and again, it is unclear how the bear got in the cabin. How do you not know how a bear got in your cabin?
Yeah, there'll be a hole somewhere.
How are you
a big hole.
ever sleeping again? I would never sleep in my cabin again. But like they can just.
Wouldn't you be putting bars on the windows of the first floor windows? Wouldn't you be putting bars on those windows?
I've been figuring something out. That is for dang sure.
One more?
Yep.
All right.
So this happens in India. We're going to travel all the way to India, but I sat down with my husband and discussed it with him because as an airline pilot, I think, what would you do? What would you do? So in India, they had to close the runway of a big airport. They shut down an entire airport because in the middle of the runway, and again, all on video, somebody from the apparently sitting in the airplane videoed this. It is a fight between a mongoose and a cobra.
Ooh.
In the middle of the runway. And they were like, let's just let this play out.
Ooh, I
like,
don't know
we don't
who
need
I'd
to
put
drive
my
our
money
planes.
on there. I don't know who I'd bet on.
Well, it turns out that this is a common fight that happens in India between mongooses and cobras. And I learned a little bit about this. Cuddly seeming mongooses tend to win 75 to 80% of the fights with the snakes. Yeah. Apparently cobra mongoose showdowns are quite common in the wild, but not typically on the tarmac.
Kind of like Republican Democrat last night during the debate.
Yes, exactly. So in this one, it's a mongoose. So what's interesting is that mongooses, they look like they're just weasels, basically. Yeah. They generally have the advantage due to they have like supersonic reflexes, very thick hides, and I did not know this, a natural resistance to cobra venom. Who knew? You know what? If you come here to Horses in the Morning, you're going to learn some stuff.
Now, do the mongooses just kill the snakes and walk away? Or do they eat them? What?
So what happens is the cobras try to eat baby mongooses. And the mongooses will eat the snake. Because the mongooses are too big for the cobra to swallow, so they go and they feed their babies. And then the mongooses are like, get away from my babies! And they jump on them. So in this video here, it seems like a pretty evenly matched fight until the mongoose was like, calling for backup! And all these...
He sent an alert.
Like, hey, Jim!
Got on the walkie-talkie.
No, come on out here. Where's Lisa? Get her over here. They all walk out there. Anyway, I just thought that was a weird story that they shut down an airport because a mongoose fought a cobra.
So mongoose won, I guess, huh?
The mongooses took that day. Apparently, the way they kill them, because if you're thinking like me, like how does a mongoose take down a cobra? They jump on behind them and grab pinch with behind their head on their hood with their teeth. See? Deep dive. I went on a deep dive on mongoose and cobra fights this morning. This is what I do, people. This is what I do. This is why, again, I tell Chad, I'm like, if you think it's hard to be around me, you should try being me. It's way harder.
Well, thank you, everybody. How can people submit weird news stories?
Just email it to me, Jamie@horseradionetwork.com with weird news in the subject line.
All right, we're going to answer 2 age-old questions before we wrap the show today. The first, a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned we're living in this rental. Hopefully this is the last week for that. I mean, I like the rental, but I really like to be in our new house. That there's cows that live here, and they're really, I mean, the fence is right up against the house, so the cows are right there against the house. And they're very big cows, mama cows, and they, by the way, we have 2 baby cows now. And they wear bells, these big cow bells, and it wakes me up all night long because they're walking by. The cows are very active. They're very active cows. And it's even worse when they lay down because when they're chewing cud, their neck moves. And it goes ting, 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 ting.
God,
so we were wondering
annoying.
why. We asked the auditors why cows wear bells. And we got all kinds of theories. I finally talked to the farmer who has the cows. Apparently, they were from Texas and just moved here not long ago. And so these cows...
The cows or the people?
Both, the cows and the people. And these cows were on like a 1,000-acre farm. So they did have the bells on so they could find the cows. Remember I said, why would you have bells on here? It's 5 acres, right? Yeah. But they were on 1,000 acres before. So all the cows had bells. He said even the baby cows had to have bells. And apparently the auditors were right on both counts. One, it was to find the cows on large acreage. It didn't make sense because they were here, but now it makes sense. And 2 is it would keep, apparently... They were kind of right, the auditors. Apparently, if the cows were kept nearer the house, they knew a certain noise when predators would come in because cows would get to running and they could tell by the bell ringing whether the cows were, on the move quickly. And they knew there was a predator around and they would come out of the house with their gun. So it was used for those 2 things. 1, to find them in the large acreage, and 2 is it would alert them if something was going on because of the way the bell rung. So there you go.
Okay, well, that begs the question.
Yeah.
Because this is still stupid.
That's all the questions I asked.
You live on 5 acres in Florida. There's probably not a whole lot of predators around. Can you take the damn bells off so I can sleep at night?
Well,
why would you not follow up with that?
Because I was afraid to be honest. And I thought I didn't want to insult them because they are lovely people. I didn't want to insult them because I think it's because they can't get near the cows enough to take the bells off.
That was my guess.
That would be my guess.
He lives in it now.
Yeah, that'd be my guess. The babies actually tried to come up to the fence and say hi to us the other day, and Mama wasn't having any parts of that. So,
really?
Yeah. And apparently cows are one of the most dangerous domesticated animals there are. More people get hurt by cows than anything else, including horses. So look that up.
That's because people mess with cows a lot more.
Yeah, I guess. I
that's
think
the
that's
dumbest statistic I've ever heard.
The next thing is we had the conversation about what's more expensive because we have listeners that have boats, you included, have boats and have horses.
I don't have a boat.
You do. You do.
No,
Joint
I don't.
property.
My husband has. No.
Your husband has a boat. So what's more expensive? A boat? Now, I was not... You were thinking buying them. I was thinking maintaining them. So what the auditors came in with is maintaining them, that horses are more expensive than boats. And I would not have guessed that. I would have guessed it would have been the boat. But several of them come in that way. Several of them have come in that way. I think, as far as buying them, it depends what you're buying, right? The way you and I buy horses, the boat's more expensive. The way Reese buys horses for the dressage show, probably the horses are more expensive. So
you make a good point. Depends on who's doing the buying.
That's right.
And who's doing the boating.
Jennifer's looking at a horse and she is going out to look at one on tomorrow. And I said, well, the price of that horse, it's either the new porch or the horse. You decide. It's not both. So in any case, horses are expensive right now. Even just trail horses are expensive right now.
Is Jennifer going to sell Nigel when she gets a new horse?
I don't think so. Unless she found somebody to take Nigel that just wanted to, as an occasional trail ride horse. He really needs to go north because of his sweating issues. We should find somebody up north to take him because he would be much happier out of Florida. Now, she did get it somewhat under control this year, but he's still miserable. I mean, he's,
The non-sweating, though, can go away. Like, it comes and goes. So maybe
it's been years that he's had it, and it's gotten worse with him. My sister-in-law, who lives down here, too, had one, and a draft horse that was a non-sweater, which is bad. And she found a place in Maryland that would take him, and he's so happy up there because, you don't have to worry about it but 1 month a year, But I don't know. I think she would keep him if she could find a home for him that she really liked further north that would like to trail ride him, then she would do that too. Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, he can stay here as long as he wants. The other idea was to have 3 horses, so when you take one out, the other 2 aren't crazy.
Obviously.
So that was the other reason. And everybody keeps trying to find me Hackney ponies. As a matter of fact, our neighbor who has the cows said yesterday contacted Jennifer and said, I have this friend who has a Hackney pony. He wants to give it away for free. And Jennifer's like, no, we're not taking it free.
Are you in the market for a Hackney pony?
No, Jennifer needs a riding horse. My pony's just fine. I'm fine with one.
I'm good. Shop's closed.
I don't need
We're
2
full.
Hackney ponies. 1 Hackney pony is plenty of Hackney ponies.
Oh my God, 2 of those things.
I can't imagine 2 of them together. They're naughty enough as 1. I can't imagine 2.
Unreal.
Yeah. Well, anyway, there's the burning question answers that I came up with for the end of today's show. Tomorrow we have the NRHA show, and then on Friday we'll do some really bad ads and we'll wrap up Poop Week. Thank you to Poseidon Animal Health for being such a good sport this week.
Wrap up Poop Week sounds...
Yes.
I don't want to wrap up any poop.
I'm trying to come up with every pun I can
God,
to drive you all nuts.
You're having so much fun with this.
I am.
Spay, neuter, geld, deworm.
Test that poop.
Test that poop.
Aren't you glad there aren't little interns now that have to sort through poop?
Man, that was a fun job.